Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Pack Leader Podcast, episode 3, hashtag PLP. Brian Bland, what's up?
Not a lot. Just had a little discussion with BJ. I'm still kind of geeked up about that, but excited to get into it.
Yeah, definitely. That was an awesome interview we had with BJ. We'll get into that. 2014 graduate, former teammate of both me and Blanton. Blanton coached him for a few years, but yeah, like I said, we'll get into all that. But before we do, I just want to quickly mention that you can find the podcast on all forms of streaming in terms of Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere you stream podcasts. All you got to do is type in Newberry Podcast Hub. I typed in Pack Leader Podcast and was able to find it on Spotify. So if you go there, that's an easy way to find it. I also want to quickly shout out our pin pool members. We appreciate everyone for pledging this year. That's a huge fundraiser for us that allows us to supplement our budget with regard to travel, recruiting, fun, and buying everything that we need to continue to maintain our program in terms of mat cleaner, tape. That stuff adds up. So thank you guys, especially our national champion members. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention you guys. So really quickly, I want to give a shout out to John Lopez. Want to give another shout out to Ann and John Dickman, Rob and Mary Beth Parker, and Rodney Bolin. We really appreciate your support, along with all of our All-American members and our All-Conference members. Every single dollar helps. So thank you. Just a couple quick updates on that. The team right now is at 34 pins, and we had to cancel Coker. We might have had a few more pins, but we had to postpone that match. But right now we're at 34 pins. The fastest pin is still Zach Shoup with 24 seconds, and Evan Kerrigan leads the front with 8 pins. Right now the team is at 285 pins, or dollars per pin, and our goal is 300. So we're just $15 away. I'd ask that you please consider supporting today by pledging. You can go to our website, the Newberry Wolves website, and on the wrestling section, it's pin pool right up there at the top. Pretty easy to navigate and find. So yeah, please go and pledge if you haven't already, and spread the word on social media. Brian Blanton, let's get into it though. This recap.
Well, rough start to the year, but we've covered all that. But recent trends seem to be going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Seem to bounce back a little bit. Went out to national duels. We went to Midwest first, but as far as team performances go, went to national duels, had a good showing. Took fourth in the country, so that was pretty huge.
Yeah.
And some things that started to pick up steam at Midwest really carried over, and I think we sort of saw the fruits of that. So younger guys are starting to respond. I think a lot of it's just an experience thing, but from Midwest, Devin Moore knocked off a nationally ranked guy. Wrestled really well most of the tournament. Lost a couple tight ones that he probably shouldn't have, or that at least he could. He's capable of winning, and he knows that and has confidence in that. And then you saw some of that carry over the next week. Caleb Spears had a pretty tough Midwest Classic, but ended up coming back and going undefeated at national duels. So lots of younger guys. Armando Acosta, another young guy who saw a lot of improvements starting at Midwest, and continue to build on some things at national duels. And Caleb Haven, he's sort of come out of nowhere as a true freshman, found his way in the lineup, and he's been lighting it on fire pretty much all year.
Yeah, undersized too. I mean, he's not a 97 pounder.
Not
He's
at all.
Undersized, and also made that round of 12 at the toughest D2 tournament in the country. So that was exciting.
And you could argue potentially won us the McKendree duel, because him getting a fall at his match made it to where at heavyweight they had to get, I think, a tech or a fall to win.
Right.
So it changed how their nationally ranked number 2 in the country heavyweight wrestled D. Rice, and then D. Rice ended up pulling out the win anyway. So that was huge.
Yeah.
So D. Rice knocks off number 2 guy in the country. But those two young guys right there, being the anchor to finish up that duel and knock off, depending on what ranking you look at it, they were ranked as high as 5th or 7th or something in one of the rankings, and a little lower in another one. But those two guys came through huge, and that was big time.
Yeah, that was huge. And I think as a team, like you just said, we had a rough start to the semester, but once we hit Midwest, we've been firing on all cylinders. I think that was a turning point for us. And you mentioned Devin Moore knocking off Alexis Soriano of Mercyhurst. He was ranked number 8th in the country. They still aren't putting any respect on Devin Moore's name because he isn't in the rankings yet, and he beat him. He also beat the UND kid that was ranked. But that one particular match I wanted to highlight, because I think that for Devin Moore specifically, that was a huge turning point for him, because he was down. It was a gritty win that he had to go go get. It wasn't like it was an easy tech fall or easy pin, but that was a win that I think he needed for his confidence to show that he can compete with those top guys in the country. And ever since then, he's continued to do that.
Absolutely. I think sort of validation for Devin on that same front came in the UCO match where he went and got way behind the 8 ball and had to come back, had to not only get a couple takedowns and hard cuts and really push the pace late to try to rack up some points, but ended up getting a takedown with back points, which for Devin Moore is unheard of. But he was able to really push the issue and ended up arguably, could have questionable call on back points there because he had the kid on his back for like 8 to 10 seconds, but only got 2 back points from it. Had he gotten the 4 count, he would have won the match. He ended up losing by 1. But just the way he came back and
broke the kid,
had confidence in his offense, and just that urgency that we've really been preaching to the guys, seeing that urgency come out in a kid, and especially a kid like Devin who's had all the tools and just hasn't quite put it all together, at least on a consistent basis. Seeing him do well at Midwest, start to turn the corner, and then follow it up with a gritty performance at National Duels. Even though he lost the match, the way he battled back and gave himself a chance to win the match, I think is going to be huge for his confidence moving forward.
Yeah, and I have a picture actually that of that guy on his back. We'll have to post it. You guys can vote if you think it was back points or not. It should have been more than 2 swipes, but that was huge. His win at Midwest, we're kind of bouncing everywhere, but it kind of all ties in and goes together. And yeah, like you said, validation and confidence that he can score and be dangerous at any point, no matter what the score of the match is. But just kind of to backtrack, so Midwest, we did take 20th. That was the highest finish of any team in the South Atlantic Conference, so we were super proud about that because I think there's something like 13 or 14 of the top 20 Division II programs that were there. So that was huge for us, going in. I think at the time, what were we, 1-2 in duels or something like that with a losing record, and to go in there and outplace everyone with not a full lineup. We didn't have Isaiah Royal there. We had some early injuries with Tim Decatur getting injured and not being able to finish the tournament. Same thing with Talon Sykes at 65. So with a very limited lineup to go in there and take 20th, that gave us a lot of confidence going into that Pembroke duel after Christmas break. And let's get into that one really quickly. So we did beat UNCP, the first victory we've had over them since February 11th of 2016. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's been a little while, and that's one that was always circled on the schedule. Kind of a big rival. Lander's sort of the newcomer in having rivalries with us. Limestone's always been our big rival, but Pembroke was sort of that number 2, and they've had a lot of success really in the mid-teens up really until now. And so the fact that they've sort of been getting the best of us for the last 4 or 5 years, it was pretty nice to get that W back.
Definitely. And Spears, he ended up winning the duel for the team. We started at 184, so it came down to his match, and he had a pretty solid opponent, but he went out there and got the job done. So shout out to Caleb Spears for doing that and being Mr. Consistent. Definitely showing leadership in that regard. It was also exciting to have Isaiah Royal back at 149 pounds. A lot of people have been wondering if he was coming back, and so to see him get back on the mat, still knocking the rust off, but
there's a little there.
Yeah,
a little WD-40, take it right off.
Yeah, but he's getting it going finally and in the room with us every day. So it's awesome to have him back in his leadership as well. I would give, it was nice to have Isaiah back, but I would give performance of the night to Nolan Wheeler.
And Nolan Wheeler's really been he's a special kid. He's with last year, he wrestled last year, got hurt early. So with the medical, you could argue he's still a freshman. He was a true freshman last year, essentially a redshirt freshman now, and just does all the little things right, works his behind off. He's gritty. He fights for everything. Really his biggest issue, I think, is just trying to get him to recognize opportunities that he passes by easier points, working his behind off for harder ones. But if that's the biggest problem he's got, we're not hurting.
Yeah. And those mat returns were just one-handed spiking the guy down.
Yeah, the guy had his one wrist, so he just used the one hand he had and was lifting the guy up above his head and slamming him down with one arm. It was gritty and impressive, and just there, you can't say enough good things about that kid.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And Armando, shout out to him continuing to improve as well. Someone who's been pretty consistently applying the stuff that we go over in practice and making those adjustments. So you always like to see that. And whether you come out on the side of the equation that you want to or not, as long as you're making those improvements, that's all we ask for as coaches. And he got it done against a pretty solid opponent as well, that I believe is ranked in the region. I don't have that pulled up, but I know that kid that he beat is ranked, so I was happy to see that.
Absolutely. And to your point, it's, one thing we told the guys the other day, and sort of, I guess, different motivation or different rationale for saying it, but you could be good at wrestling and not good at winning, and you're not going to get those results. So winning is a skill, and we've got some younger guys who are wrestling better and better and better, and the winning's going to start taking care of itself, and they're going to start getting a little more confidence. I think that was Devin Moore's biggest issue is just not knowing how to win, even though he knew how to wrestle.
Right.
And he's started to figure that out. And I think Armando's still turning that corner, but he's just, a couple steps away from really being a problem for a lot of people.
110%. And I mean, not to keep going back, but that Jonesy tilt Devin pulled out of his behind.
Oh, man.
Not that he didn't know it, but he really pulled that out of nowhere to hit that and get those swipes at the end of the match. Again, figuring out how to win, not just how to wrestle and have good technique, but knowing that I've drilled this, I've done this in practice, this is what's going to win me this match right now, so I'm going to go for it regardless of what happens. So that's the kind of stuff you like to see. So just put this timeline together. We had Midwest Classic, then right after that,
was before Christmas break.
Yep, before Christmas break. We came back. We wrestled UNCP on the 3rd, won that duel 21-15, and then we hit the road after one day of practice to go to Kentucky for national duels, and that's like Coach already mentioned where we took 4th. Went 2-2. That's the best finish we've actually had at national duels since 2014 when we were runner-ups back then. That was the year, BJ senior year, like we mentioned. It was awesome to have Cy in the corner. He brought a lot of energy per usual.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it was a tremendous weekend for Spears too, kind of like we mentioned. He went 4-0, knocking off some ranked opponents. Kerrigan knocked off the #1 kid in the country at 125. So it was so much positive to happen up and down the lineup. Also, shout out to JP who wrestled in the open that was happening as a red shirt right in the other gym, and he went 2-2 there. But McKendree, so we'll kind of comb through that one. We beat McKendree 24-16. Obviously was the underdog in that one. They've been ranked pretty high. I think one poll had them at number 3, one had them at number 5. But that was the match where Kerrigan went out and took out number 1, Christian Mayhigh of McKendree, and in a pretty dominant fashion. It wasn't like he had to squeak this win out and hit something crazy or he stuck him. We majored that kid, and I think it was a pretty convincing victory.
Oh, absolutely. And when you're 25-pounder, whoever's leading off the duel, usually it's at 125. But, when the guy leads off the duel, goes out there and not only gets a win, but gets bonus points, and it's against a top-ranked guy in the country,
right.
That's just energy for the team to feed off of.
Right. I love dual meets. And I argue that people might not agree, but I argue that the national championship should come down to the dual meet. And it did. I mean, obviously you have that, but the traditional one that the NCAA recognizes is obviously the tournament in March. But it's just something about that 10v10 and the energy you get, and how, like you said, how that momentum really changed the way that heavyweight wrestled Devin Rice when it came down to that match, and he ended up beating the number 2 kid in the country, Ian Kuehl from McKendree. So that's awesome, and I like it for that aspect because, I think it makes it more of a fan sport.
Right.
In the dual meet, nobody necessarily, unless you're a wrestler's parent or a part of the community, it's hard to go sit in the gym all day for a tournament.
Right.
So,
and another aspect too, as a coach, I guess that I kind of like is it tests your coaching. Whether it's bumping a kid or whether it's picking neutral instead of bottom. Whatever the case is, there's a lot more opportunities in a dual meet for coaches' decisions to not only impact the duel but compound upon each other. So it definitely gives you a different element of that you get in the dual setting that you don't necessarily get in a tournament setting.
Yeah, a lot more strategy involved.
Absolutely.
Kerrigan had started us off right. Devin Moore continued to compete at a high level. Joshua Blatt was when he was a true freshman. He actually transferred to us from Belmont Abbey. He had his debut. A little bit of a rough start, his first match in like 2 years, but I think he figured out the pace that he needs to be wrestling at until he knocks the rust off as well. But he stepped in for Isaiah because Isaiah actually popped positive right before the night before we left, so we weren't able to take him out there. there. But Blatt was a great teammate and coming on the last minute notice, and I was proud for the effort that he gave. And then Will Evans continues to make improvements, getting it done out there, tossing people on their heads, and always fun to watch. Nothing short of fireworks anytime he wrestles. Spears got the notable one of the aside from Kerrigan and D. Rice beat number 1 and number 2. I'd say Spears had a notable win as well over Josh Jones. He beat the number 6 kid in the country there to start off his 4-0 run that weekend.
Absolutely, and Spears this weekend was noticeably a different version of himself that I think we were building to before Midwest. He had a little dip in his consistency in Midwest. So it was one of those, I think we were all sort of holding our breath to see which way this was going to go. And then we get out to national duels, and he's, like, turning people and stuff. Yeah. It was wild.
Right.
He's hitting moves on top and controlling people.
Right. Well, you would think we'd do stuff in top or something like that.
Right. He made it look like we drill wrestling moves.
Yeah. Who would have thought? And so, yeah, that was a fun first match for us to start. Then we went into our second duel with number 14, Upper Iowa, beat them 25-18. I don't have the stats on that, but I'm pretty sure, that's a pretty significant win for us, too. I don't know the last time we wrestled them and what that outcome was like. We have to find out.
I think it was at national duels in like 13 or 14, okay. same ballpark.
Got it. But let's talk about Evan Kerrigan, Lat Drop City to start us off. It was beautiful, textbook.
Just goes out of the gate and just guns blazing.
Yep.
I love it.
Feet in the air, got to start it off right, pinned them to begin with, and then Devin and Moore come out with more consistency and get the W for us. So that was awesome. Will Evans, I believe that kid that he wrestled was the same one that he wrestled at the NCAA tournament. Is that correct?
He wrestled the kid to become an All-American.
Yes.
Pinned him there with a lat drop.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those, like,
he's going to know it's coming.
If we can do anything in this match, it ain't going to be a lat drop.
Right. It's going to be something else.
Right. And he pinned it with a lat drop.
Cy was in the corner. Cy was like, there's no way he's going to lat drop him again. If he lat drops him again, I'm leaving. And when he hits it, I looked at Cy. I was like, are you hitting the road or what? But he stuck it out. So that was fun. Another beautiful lat drop. Those two guys hit, some of the best throws on our team. It's always fun to watch. And then Caleb Haven came up big for us again. Obviously being undersized, but goes out there and gets it done against Brody Garnier. So that was fun as well.
Yeah, Caleb he's an example of what effort can do for you, because it's not just that, like, he's undersized, but he also at times looks a little lost.
Yeah.
But he goes out there and you hear it like with football a lot. People will say, like, if you're going to screw up 100 miles an hour. And when he does screw up, he does that 100 miles an hour too. So whether he's doing good stuff or bad stuff, he's doing it with so much effort that it's hard to stop.
Yeah.
And he finds a way to put himself in great positions over and over again. And he does have a few things that are very nice.
Yes.
And he's found a way to work those in and create his own positions a little more consistently. And when you keep creating good positions, your opponents are going to work around those and try to work out of them, and that's where you catch people. And he ended up catching that kid and sticking him, which gave us enough of a gap, enough of a lead that Devin Rice was able to go out there and not have the pressure of having to win, but because it changed the way his opponent wrestled, he was able to get the win. So that was huge, knocking off the number 2 guy.
Yeah, no, for sure. That was massive. And so we had a great first day. Second day rolls around. Obviously not as great, but it was still super fun to see that competition. Like, you want to go through a season and say, I got to wrestle the number 1, number 2, number 3 teams in the country to see where you're at. And while there is a bit of a gap, I think me and you both, had a conversation and on the same page along with the team that, the gap really isn't technical for us. There's just a few intangible things that we need to focus in on, and we kind of talked about it with the team a little bit with regard to discipline, with regard to being more gritty, with being tougher. Those things that we can work on, I think that the gap is at. It's not necessarily, we watch them wrestle and, they're hitting these crazy techniques that we need to be showing. It wasn't that. It's just that, like I said, there are a few things that we need to work on mentally, I think, that we can stand to make some improvements.
Yeah, and I think that's where the comments came about being good at wrestling versus being good at winning. Like, these guys are on the number 1 and 2 teams in the country for a reason, and they expect to win, and they're used to doing it. And so when the matches come down and it's tight, those skills and mentality adjustments are I think what gave them the edge in a lot of those matches, and even matches that looked a little out of hand, it was a really tightly contested takedown, and then just tough grittiness on top, catch us with a cheap tilt here and there, and then all of a sudden it's 6-0, and it looks like we're way behind the 8 ball, but the margin is really razor thin in a lot of those matches, even if it doesn't look like that. So we're right there, and like you said, having that measuring stick of the number one team in the country, number two team in the country, to measure ourselves against, I think is huge for our guys' confidence moving forward.
Oh yeah, and now when we get to the NCAA tournament, we know that we've wrestled those guys. We've been there. We competed at a high level. And just continue to shout out Spears. I mean, he got the dub, both duels on the second day, and beat number 11 Billy Higgins to cap off his undefeated weekend. So I mean, like I said, he had an outstanding weekend, and super proud of the leadership he gave for us. Like I mentioned earlier, Coker Duel, we had to postpone that one. COVID is starting to rear its ugly head again, so having to make those adjustments and postponements. But we roll with the punches. That's what you do as an athlete. You make adjustments and you keep moving. So we've actually postponed that Coker Duel to the end of the month for senior night on January 29th. So if you're in the area, please come visit, come check it out and if you can't, you can hit us up online and watch the stream that way. Some other just D2 wrestling news that's pretty cool. St. Cloud's amazing run that got snapped by Kearney. I think they were, for NCAA, they had the record for most consecutive wins in a row when they hit number 77. And then right after that, UCO snapped that streak in the finals of national duels.
Right. So they broke the record in the semis against Kearney, and then the very next match, UCO not only upsets them, but ends the streak, and also ends the streak of consecutive national duels victories for St. Cloud. They've won like the last 5 in a row.
Oh, man.
And so UCO ended a lot of things that weekend.
Yeah, they looked good. They looked good this past weekend. And then also another huge upset was this past weekend when NAIA Grandview knocked off Kearney. Obviously we wrestled them, so we know where they're at. But I just love that kind of stuff because I think it just goes to further destroy that narrative that like you got to go Division I to wrestle at a high level. And just a public service announcement to everybody: you do not have to wrestle Division I to have a relevant and meaningful career. You don't. You can go wrestle D2, wrestle NAIA, and wrestle at a super high level. We compete for championships here, and so I just love when you see those teams that aren't necessarily getting all the press coverage, knocking off teams that are considered a level up from them, because you can compete at a high level no matter where you are. I would argue that we've had our fair share of guys that come to Newberry that wrestle D1. We've had transfers from VTech, transfers from Lehigh, you name it, Chapel Hill, and also a bunch of guys that come through our program, in our program right now, that could go wrestle Division I. So.
Right, absolutely. And I think that's, at the end of the day, you can't necessarily say this as a coach to a kid when you're recruiting him or whatever, but at the same time, you kind of want them to know, like, don't go D1 just to say I've got that tag of D1. Like, if you're not going somewhere that's going to give you opportunities to compete for championships and to go be part of a room that's going to make you better, then what are you doing? You're just going to wrestle for some not great D1 team just to say you're D1. And more often than not, those are kids that you see and you hate to see it because it ends up not panning out. They get burned out. They don't ever crack the lineup. 2 years in, they quit, transfer back home, and go to Clemson or Carolina or something. It's like, man, you could have been a stud in our program.
Yeah.
And so, again, that's not to say that these kids aren't good enough or talented enough to accomplish their goals or whatever, but they get enamored by that D1 label. And I think it's not always the best fit for a kid. And those are kids that I think in a program like ours could come and have a lot of success.
Yeah, and I would argue it's not about whether you could wrestle Division I or not. It's about, like you said, is it a good fit? Is it a good fit socially? Is it a good fit academically? Is it a good fit financially? Proximity to home. You got to look at all that stuff, not just can you go D1. There are a lot of people who can wrestle D1, but the more important question is this a good fit?
And we'll give you plenty of chances to wrestle D1. We're at the NC State and Hokie Open every year. We've got King Open, UNCP Open, our Open, all feature a lot of D1 guys, and we're usually at least one or two of those.
Yeah, for sure.
And we've had D1 teams on the schedule before.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we wrestled Kent State. We wrestled Virginia Tech. We wrestled Michigan State. So it's not uncommon for us to go get those looks. So if you want to do that, you could do that at Newberry, but you can also compete for championships at Newberry too. So that's always something I could talk about forever, just because it's something that always frustrates me when somebody's like, D1. That's great, but is it a good fit? That's my question. But anyway, moving on so we don't talk too much and take up too much time. Next up, I want to get into this interview with BJ Young. Like I said, he was a 2014 graduate. We'll give some more details during the interview. But, BJ's the man, and I'm excited for you guys to see this interview. We'll get going here, everybody. We got BJ Young here joining us on the Pack Leader Podcast. BJ, what's up, dude?
What's up? What's up, Newberry?
I like it. We appreciate you joining today. We're all repping the Newberry wrestling gear. BJ, what year did you graduate?
2014.
Nice. Awesome to have BJ. He's a former teammate, obviously, me and Blanton. Blanton, you actually coached him for a little bit, right?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Couple years.
3 years, baby.
What's that?
3 years. Blanton was my coach. Freshman year. My freshman year.
Yeah. I forgot it. Yeah, because your freshman year was my senior year. Yeah, I was thinking it was 2. You're right.
I was 2. I took second. You took third. And then you were my coach the next 3.
Nice. I like
right.
it. I like it. Well, like BJ just mentioned, so you took second as a true freshman. The only, and correct me if I'm wrong, Blanton, but the only Newberry wrestler to ever take second as a true freshman, correct?
Yes.
And also was a 3-time NCAA All-American. One of the best to ever do it, to be completely honest with you, in terms of wins and accolades for a Newberry wrestler. So super excited to have you on the podcast. You were a leader when you were here on the team. You've been a leader since you graduated. And when you think about the Pack Leader podcast and people who've come through Newberry wrestling to be some of the best leaders through our program, you're definitely one of them. But I kind of want to get started from the beginning, man. Talk to us just a little bit about high school and, how you did on the high school scene and how that transition was for you coming in from high school to Newberry. Like, how did you land here in South Carolina?
Yeah, man. So I'm from Jersey. I was from a hotbed wrestling state and a big time program, Jackson Memorial. At the time, we were state champs almost every year. Jackson, we were on a crazy run. Jersey's only one individual state tournament. Everyone goes into one bracket. We were repping out state champs and state placers every single year. So I was definitely from a big wrestling background, wrestled my whole life since I was 7 years old. Every weekend at the tournament growing up. So, actually at the time, my coach at Jackson was Scott Goodell, the coach of Rutgers. So my sophomore year, he left us. He went to Rutgers.
Nice.
Just to put it in context, the type of team we had. Like, our coach went from a high school right into, Division I coaching because we excelled so much under him. And so I was surrounded by a lot of good wrestlers, and I had a good wrestling career in high school. But as we guys on my team that know and stuff like that, for my potential and stuff, I was a little bit underachieved in high school. I never placed in the states in New Jersey. I lost in a blood round a couple years. Districts, regions, that's the way it goes. It goes districts, regions, states. I crushed all those, won those. But when the states come, I couldn't pull the trigger. I used to tense up and, change the way I wrestled in the biggest matches. And it was a mentality thing. It was a mindset thing. It was, maturity thing. I was real young. I was thinking about the process the wrong way. And then after my senior year, when I failed to place, again, and never got on the podium when I should have, and all these guys that I always beat were winning states, people, a lot of the big time recruiters were like, this kid, something's not adding up. You don't got it. But before that had happened, actually, I'd already signed before my even senior year, just to take some pressure off myself. And I had already signed with Newberry, and they snatched me up. So I decided to go down there. I followed Sean Burns, a former state champ for Jackson, teammate at Newberry.
Yeah.
And I got that recruiting from, I took 7th at Junior Nationals. Finley at the time he refed my match to All-American. And they got me down on a visit. They gave me the offer and I took it. And then I just rolled into Newberry, and with, shortcomings in high school, I was like, I'm doing everything the opposite way here, and I'm leaving it all on the mat. And if I fail, I'm going down swinging. If I die, I'm going to die trying. So it was messing up in high school over and over that got me to break that barrier in my own mind of just letting things fly and just believing and fully going for it. Because it took me messing up so many times to finally be like, I'm pulling the trigger and I'm not letting go. I'm not stopping. And I rolled into Newberry and, working real hard, doing all the right things. And before you know it, I remember talking to you, Darrell, in the stands my freshman year, and you're like, dude, you're in the NCAA finals. Do you understand?
It was wild.
And I was just like, dude, I'm just going. They blow the whistle and I'm just going. And I'm just, every time they're raising my hand. So I guess I know what's going on, but I kind of don't at the same time, man. I'm just going.
And it's wild. Do you think, I didn't realize until just now that you All-American at Junior Nationals as a junior. Do you think signing at Newberry, like before your senior year, did that take any pressure off of you? Because I think you placed at Beast of the East as a senior too, which is a huge tournament. And then you took third as a senior. Did that take any pressure off of you?
Yeah, it's funny, man. I placed at the Beast of the East twice. I placed at Junior and Senior Nationals, and I lost in the blood round of Super 32. And I lost in the quarterfinals of that Super 32, an ultimate rideout, right? So now I dropped the blood round, and I have the defending champ who got upset, and I have him.
I love you, boy.
So I lose my junior year into Super 32 blood rounds, and those two kids that beat me took third, fourth. So, you know, even Super 32, like 5, 6, 7, 8, I was definitely there. I lost to the guys that took third and fourth, one in quadruple rideout, and the other one was the defending champ. He beat me close. So, like, every national tournament, I was there. But for some reason in high school, when it's a kid that I knew my whole life and I knew everything he did, instead of just focusing on me, I would kind of just focus on what he did, and it just made me not pull the trigger. So it definitely took some pressure off me because, you know, at the time I definitely knew what was going on with me, and I thought it was something that I could overcome. Like, but when I had the opportunity and, you know, Valak offered me full right on the spot on early signing day as a senior before my senior year. It was October. Wrestling doesn't start till after Thanksgiving in New Jersey. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to take this and go down there and do something great with them. So it definitely took some pressure off, man.
Yeah, and it certainly worked out for the program, man. I mean, you, Blanton, I mean, you guys, y'all helped put Newberry on the map and made it a hotbed not only for those Jersey kids that you wrestle with, but for kids all over the country. I mean, we've since the time you've been here through up to now, we've always had kids from all over the country on our roster, which is something that I'm proud of as a coach. Talking to me about, we always joke and talk even before, you know, I hit record for this call. We always joke just about, you know, you remember this, you remember that. What are some of your favorite memories from Newberry, your time on the team?
Man, just traveling, you know, it was definitely a really cool feeling to be from a school with 900 kids and we're going across the country and just putting on kids. You know, like we went out to Grand Canyon duels twice when you guys were on the team.
That was always my favorite.
In Phoenix, and we're out there for a week, and, you know, we're getting in our shenanigans, you know, and we're beating people up on the mat. And then, you know, we're hiking that mountain out there in Grand Canyon as a workout. And, you know, we're out in Iowa and we're out in Illinois for national duels. And, you know, I remember, I think it was your senior year, Darrell, my junior year, at national duels. I mean, at Newberry duels, we were in that little cut in Ravel's office, and we were like taking a break in between matches. And the kid was out on the phone with his dad, and he was like, "Man, we just got crushed. We're in the middle of Podunk, South Carolina. This school
I remember that.
beat us bad, Dad. These kids killed us." And me and you were just sitting behind the door cracking up like, "Man, these guys have no idea. We're taking all these teams from Minnesota and Iowa, and they're all coming to Newberry and our gym in winter break, and we're just crushing them." So that was always great. And then, you know, being from Jersey in a hotbed and everyone was expecting, you know, oh, this kid's going to go to Penn State or Iowa, blah, blah, blah. Like when I went D2, a lot of people were like, come on, blah, blah. And so for me, being able to wrestle those D1s and put it on some of those D1 guys was huge, like the Hokie Open and the NC State. So for me, going to those D1s and placing there and beating those big time guys or wrestling them tough. I don't know if you guys remember, I wrestled Devin Carter and it was like 14-12. It was like a crazy match. And, you know, that kid took second, fifth, and third in D1. And it was like, hey, you know, I'm D2, but we're here to go. So that was always cool to go out and be from this small school and wrestle these giants, per se, and be able to, you know, to swing and give it right back to them. So that was awesome. That was one of my greatest memories, man.
Yeah, we wrestled at a high level. I remember Blanton inside tripped old boy to his back from Kent State. Because when we had, what was his name again?
Kilgore. Dustin Kilgore.
Kilgore. He inside tripped him to his back, and I think that was like a try with Virginia Tech, Kent State, or either Kent State and Michigan.
Michigan,
I definitely want to get back to putting those guys on the schedule.
I know. I never got to wrestle. My freshman year, we had Kent State, Purdue, and I think Ohio University, and it got snowed out. And I remember I was so mad because when Goodell left us, Doug Wood Stanley took over for us. He was a Jackson State champion. He wrestled at Purdue. So you know me, I was in my phone when that schedule came out. On this date, I'm wrestling Purdue. 33 is going down. Watch it. And then it got canceled. I was like, no, you guy got lucky. You know me, man. I was all ready for that.
Ready to shoot 1,000 shots.
1,000 shots. All I need
set
is
up
one.
0 of them.
Yep.
I need one leg. I'm on top. Boots are in. Done.
Right.
That's my dude. That was it. That's where it went. It went from BJ's in the quarterfinals of states. BJ took 0 shots to BJ's in the quarterfinal NCAAs. He took 10 shots in the first 30 seconds. He got one. Now it's 5-0 because he turned the guy.
Wrestling a 30-minute match with you was never my favorite thing to do at practice.
I could not touch Darrell's legs until it was about 12 minutes in on a 30-minute match. And then he was like, you got it. And I'm like, yes, thank you, Val, because I couldn't touch his legs for the last 2 weeks.
That's funny. So yeah, man, we had a great time in Newberry. How do you feel like it's prepared you though for the workforce? I mean, you've done a lot in terms of your MMA career. I mean, you're head coach at UCC right now. How do you think your time at Newberry, your experiences on the team with us as teammates, the coaches with Revels, Valak, and your professors and all that, how has that prepared you to continue being a leader in the community right now?
It definitely helped me. I was always a leader, even in my high school teams. We were state champs my senior year. I pinned the guy for us to win it, but it definitely was like more like icing on the cherry on top of the sundae, or icing on the cake, whatever, with me being able to be in that leader role. And, as a leader, I was very vocal, and, I never was expecting or telling the guys to do something that I didn't do. I was always, doing it and telling them basically keep up or whatever. So it was just like a weight off my shoulders to be able to be that way, be that role, and to have the accolades to match. Because in high school, I led the team to a New Jersey state championship. Our team was super good. But then at the end of the year, when it was my time to get it, I never got it. So it was kind of like, what's going on? So starting fresh as a freshman and getting that NCAA finals just set up the next 3 years for me to be a leader and to take that first year to learn. Like, I learned a lot from BB. I learned a lot from Elkins, and just the different ways. Like, throughout your career, Darrell, me and you were both leaders on the same time and captains together, and we had two completely different styles, and we meshed real good together. We drilled every single day. We roomed together every single day. But to be able to take those different styles and personalities and then work it to make, the same common goal was huge for me, especially going all the way down to South Carolina, man. Like, the way you guys handle stuff and the way the South, your guys' culture is completely different than Jersey. Up in Jersey, you're not doing this in the restaurant. You know exactly what you're going to get, and you're not going to like it if, that, oh, well. Right. So being able to take those different personalities and techniques, and same thing with our coaches, man. Valak and Revels, those guys are both great in their own ways. They're two different guys, two completely different styles. And it was definitely helped me to be able to mesh and learn the different personalities and treat stuff different. And then it was a learning experience to see guys like you and Blanton, who are at times super laid back, but then can flip the switch when needed and are super competitive and super driven and super tough. Like up in Jersey, the tough guys, they're always going to be and acting like tough guys. It's just that personality and that, place where we live. So it was cool to see, like, oh, this guy doesn't really seem tough or act tough, but this guy's super tough. So it was, and at 18 years old, by myself down there in Newberry, it was cool to see that and definitely learn from it. It was awesome, man. Yeah,
that's awesome perspective. I never
learning a different language talking to you guys down there, but it definitely got me ready for the real world.
Right. So we always have 30 different names for the same move. But no, that's awesome. And then let everybody know right now where are you coaching at in Jersey?
I started a JUCO program up in Union County, North Jersey. It's called Union County College. So actually I moved from there to Jackson when I was younger. My father was the fire chief up in Rahway, a city up there. So it's an inner city school, and it's awesome, man. I'm helping these kids who are coming from an area where wrestling isn't big. And like I said, it's all inner cities. I'm from the suburbs down in the Jersey Shore. It's a completely different lifestyle. So I'm going up there. I'm finding the talent in this area, and I'm, trying to exploit it all and help these kids get to the next level. So it's good. I got a good group of kids right now, and, we're ready to go. They're it's been a while, but they're bought in. They're working hard, man, and we're looking forward to it. It's exciting, man. It's an exciting time.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to get some of those guys at Newberry too once they get BJ trained.
Yeah, they're pumped, man. They're I talked to them a lot. I talked to them about it. I tell them stories, so they want to come, man. They want to be great.
I like it. You kind of talked a little bit about this in your own personal journey in getting better, but just for the guys on the team now looking to, get some of those same accolades you have and compete at a high level on the team, maybe even struggling with the same things you struggle with from the standpoint of opening up, give those guys some advice on how to accomplish those goals.
You know, it's pretty basic stuff, but at the same time, you got to be deeply rooted in it. You know, you guys know me. I was deeply rooted. I didn't change up for anybody or anyone. So the number one thing I would say, you know, obviously you got to work hard. You got to work. Even, you know, my shortcomings in high school, I was always the hardest worker in the room. I always went to club. I always did everything right. You got to live the lifestyle. You know, you guys know, you knew me then, you knew me now. I never drank. Still to this day, I've never drank alcohol in my life. Never smoked, did any drugs, anything. You got to live the lifestyle. And with that being said is, you know, something that was huge for me and that always motivated and at times was kind of a hard thing for me was being an individual. You know, I was never afraid to be myself. I didn't drink. I didn't go out. You know, I was in a relationship for 3 of those years in Newberry with a girl all the way back from Jersey. You know, I was faithful the whole time. I always did the right thing. And I wasn't afraid to do it. I wasn't afraid if people were saying, oh, you need to drink, or oh, you need to go out, or oh, go talk to this girl. I told them, no, I don't believe in that. You're wrong. Leave me alone. Get out of my face, you know, and a lot less nicer than that. You know, I was myself and I said, you know, this is who I am. This is what I'm going to do. And if you don't like it, get out of here. I'm going to be a champion. And you know, I stood my ground. I believed in what I believed in and I worked hard to get it. And, you know, again, with the accolades as a true freshman, that was another thing that was a weight lifted off my shoulder because all through high school, I was the same way and lived the same way. And people are like, oh, you need to do this, or you need to do this, you're too serious, you're killing yourself, you need to lighten up. And I was like, no, it's going to come, it's going to come, it's going to come. And, you know, I stood my ground, I stood what I believed in, and then boom, college hit, it all came out. So, you know, you got to put in the work. You got to live the right lifestyle, and you can't be afraid to be yourself. And you got to believe in yourself, man. Like, I remember, you know, 100 times going for a crazy move or in a scramble and just hear Ravels and Val. I'm like, no. And, oh, yeah. And all of a sudden I pop out of nowhere. And everyone kind of being like, what the heck did he just do? And in my head, I knew I'm going to get this. And I can see stuff that other people couldn't see or feel, whatever the case was. Yeah. I believed, you know, I'm going to go out here. And if I get my hands on this guy, I'm going to come up on top basically every time if I can get him moving. So that was always my goal. Get the guy moving, get him scrambling, and I'll come out on top. And, you know, the biggest difference, like I said, from high school and college was just fully believing that and fully going for it. So, you know, advice, work hard, believe in yourself, be an individual, and just go for it. Believe in your stuff. You got to be your number one fan out there.
I like it, man. That's huge. And if it's one thing that I've learned, you know, we all learn from each other. If it's one thing I took from you, you know, is you certainly were yourself at all times, the same person, no matter who you were around. And I always appreciated how blunt you were too. But no, I respect that about you. Social life, you are not social life, but personal life. You're about to get married, right? This summer?
Correct. Yeah, our wedding got delayed 2 years because Corona. But we're finally, you know, we were going to get married in Puerto Rico, so Puerto Rico shut down. We were going to go out there, smaller wedding around my family, because I still got family out there. But now we're taking it home. We're getting married on the Jersey Shore, and, you know, we're pumped. I got an amazing fiance. Her name's Dana. She was a beast. We went to high school together. She played Division I soccer.
Nice.
Had multiple scholarships in multiple sports. She played soccer, basketball, and track. So she's awesome. She's all about it. She's great with my fighting career.
So she'll be the athlete in the family.
Yeah, so she's the real athlete.
Yeah, I'm just a stubborn guy who doesn't give up, basically, you know.
Right.
Hey, but on that note, just to backtrack a little bit, like, you know, you talk about kind of being an individual and all that stuff. I don't want it to get lost in translation. Like, you were also an awesome teammate, and that's something that, like, you brought guys along with you. You know, you lifted people up, and, you know, I guess sort of speaking to being a leader and all that stuff, but you influence people positively. I mean, I can remember at Grand Canyon Duels, I think we were wrestling Carney or something. I stuck a guy and I came off the mat and you were just like, that's how the captain steers the ship. Like, you were all pumped up. Like,
yeah.
But I mean, like you, you had a way of just, you know, bringing everybody up to that level. You know, you always had good energy. You always, you know, a team first guy. And so even though you had the individual accolades, I don't want it to get lost in translation for anybody watching. You know, you were an awesome teammate. You were the ideal sort of teammate. I think you really did a good job of coming in, like, respecting those guys who were kind of paving the way before you and learning from them, and then, you know, waiting your turn and taking the reins when it was your time, and you just handled that awesomely. So, Yeah, I really think that's something to point out, you know.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that, man. You know, that's kind of, you know, the way I want it to be. And the way I look at it is like, if I handle myself, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, then that's going to help the team. Because let's say I'm the 41 pounder. If the 41 pounder's going at 100%, then that's a boost for the team. If I was going at 90% and then something I'm doing wrong, now I'm bringing the team down. So the way I was looking at it is like, if everyone takes care of themselves and what they're supposed to be doing, then the whole team is taken care of. You know, so a lot of people don't see that and they don't see how it can correlate. But if I'm doing everything right for myself, then that team starter is doing everything right. If every team starter is doing everything right, the whole team's doing everything right.
Yeah.
So, you know,
110%, man. Well, I appreciate it. BJ Young, everybody, aka the Rican Rebel. Thanks for chatting with us, dude. The podcast should be out pretty soon. This episode 3. But like I said, it's awesome to have been your teammate. I consider myself fortunate to know you and to have learned from you. And we'll definitely keep in touch. Send us some UCC kids.
definitely, man. Hey, I don't know if people out there watching, BJ Young, Darrell Brown, Brian Blanton, 143 wins, baby. Nobody won more than all 3 of them. Nobody won more than these 3 right here.
Correcting it on the record.
I want to see another trio with more wins. I'll be waiting.
I like it. I appreciate it, dude.
All right, boys. Thank you. Keep in touch.
Good seeing you, buddy.
See you, man.
So next up, that was BJ Young. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Next up, we have a tri-match with Allen and Emmanuel this coming Thursday. Actually, we hit the road and head to Franklin Springs, Georgia, and I'm excited about that one.
Yep, it's as close as we are to Allen. It seems a little odd that we got to drive 2 hours the other direction to wrestle them, but it is what it is.
It is.
See, Cy really screwed up this whole thing with Emmanuel last year because we were supposed to duel him here, and Cy was like, no, we'll come to you and duel him. So now, in my mind, they should be coming here, but this is their year to host.
Thanks, Si. What are we doing, man?
Yeah, so so I'm not super excited about making that drive again, but it should be a good opportunity for our guys to go compete. And Emmanuel's been a little down this year, so hopefully it'll be a chance for us to go and build some confidence and work on some things and improving. Continuing to improve upon the things that we've seen some growth in so far, especially with the young guys. So I'm looking forward to an exciting couple matches there, and hopefully we'll come out with a couple W's.
Yeah, and that week off after having such an exciting first week in January, not wrestling last week was kind of a bummer. I like practicing all, but competing that's what I live for. So
100%.
It'll be good to just get back on the mat and get that whistle blowing. Like I did mention in passing, senior night is at the end of the month when we wrestle Mount Olive and Coker. So please come support these seniors. Caleb Spears, Evan Kerrigan, guys who've given so much to our program. We really want to take some time and honor them for that dedication and their commitment to Newberry wrestling, because we are what they are. We are what we are because of them, and we want to make sure they know that. So if you got some time to come out and support, please do. And then the Lander and Limestone tri-match will be on February 3rd. And hopefully we can get the podcast recorded by then. Everything's touch and go with COVID, but we'll definitely be keeping everybody updated on social media with not only the next probable date, but also the next probable guest for who we'll have on. We were talking about trying to change it up a little bit. I feel like all we've had is our coaches on the show.
Right. Not by design, but it has fallen that way. So maybe mix up somebody who's doing well in the business sector. Something like that, just to get a different perspective on translating wrestling success and success at Newberry into the real world, hopefully.
Right. Yeah, because we've had no shortage of leaders come through the program.
Absolutely.
I mean, as you can see, and a lot of those, most of those, I would say, aren't coaching. So, yeah, alumni, if you want to get on the show, hit us up, reach out. But other than that, thanks to everybody for listening for episode 3. Make sure you go follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook to keep up with us. And, excited for the match on Thursday.
Indeed.
Now if you gon'